It's a crazily leaky day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Not only do we have another massive Modern Horizons 3 leak that includes insanely powerful cards and tweaks on existing reserve list cards, but we also got an accidental Bloomburrow leak way ahead of schedule.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered to look at an insane amount of Magic cards. There has been another gigantor Modern Horizons 3 leak. Wait until you see 6, the tree folk that combines up with Ren to be Ren and 6. The card is absolutely mind-blowing. No matter how many times I look at it, I can't stop shaking my head. But what made me shake my head even more is the fact that we got a Bloomburrow leak. That set's not coming for months, and somebody screwed up big. But guess what? That means we benefit. So we'll start out with the Modern Horizons 3, and then we'll move on to Bloomburrow. Let's look at some cards, baby! All right, my friends, we're starting out with a huge hulking Eldrazi in the form of Devourer of Destiny. 2 colorless and 5 for a 6/6 Eldrazi, which is kind of smaller on the Eldrazi scale, really, because they get gigantic. And it says, you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, at the beginning of your first upkeep, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put one of those cards back on top of your library, exile the rest. So, if you choose to reveal this, you have to do the part where you actually look at the top 4 cards of your library, and at least 3 of those are getting exiled. You can choose to put one back, or you can choose to let all 4 get exiled. It's an interesting way to try and sculpt part of your deck that might not be useful at the beginning of the game out of existence. And it ties into the name as well. He literally devours the future, the destiny that was supposed to be yours. And the next ability he has is when you cast this spell, exile target permanent that's 1 or more colors. So regardless of whether the spell gets countered, whether he hits the board or not, just by casting him, you get to exile a permanent. And there's obviously tons of permanents that meet the condition of being 1 or more colors. So from a power level, 7 mana, I don't know about how often you're actually going to be casting the guy, but when you combine the fact that he can sculpt the beginning of what you're doing, that's not too shabby. And the idea of an Eldrazi that eats your actual destiny is really funky. Normally, if you think Devourer of Destiny, you're going to think, yo, are you eating my opponent's destiny? But actually, it's both people's destiny. You can have it chew through your mind if you want to do that, if you're willing to let the Eldrazi plunge itself into your mind and tear part of it away for your own advantage, hopefully. But he also removes the destiny of something else by just exiling it straight up. Whatever your future was supposed to be, gone just like that. I love the flavor of the Eldrazi. They're absolutely nutty. You can see this one looks kind of like a giant worm that's burst up from the earth out of nowhere, right? You think everything's going to be fine, and he shows up and goes, bam, I'm going to eat you Dune style. All right, so after that, we've got Aether Spike. Now, there are a ton of energy cards. A lot of cards got leaked. There's a bunch of commons that aren't that exciting that generate energy and are going to be all right in your limited format. So I don't have all those in this video because I don't want to waste your time with a bunch of garbage, just the more interesting stuff. So you have Aether Spike, which is an interesting twist on the mana leak concept. Those blue spells that cost 1 blue and 1 and can counter a spell. This one basically gives you 2 energy. Then you can spend any amount of energy to counter the spell unless they pay 1 for every energy you spend. The flavor text says, the shield doesn't block the fire physically. It tells the fire to stop. That's a pretty funky idea. Basically, it's like, okay, so this taps into a different level of countering out the magic by not blocking it, but telling the spell itself to cease existing. I don't know. It's a little bit weird in that way, but it's also interesting. And the artwork to me, it feels very much, it's almost got a techno vibe to it in terms of this was probably originally going to be used as Kamigawa style artwork for like the new Kamigawa world. Now, when I look at it, you've got what looks like a gigantic, massive meteor that comes crashing down. And this is just encircling it. It's not actually stopping it so much as it's just encompassing it. So normally when we see blue magic countering out fire magic, it's more obvious. This feels more like containment, right? But either way, it's an interesting card for limited. I don't know if it'll fit into energy decks, but if energy decks do become a thing, this is something that absolutely could, because when you have a big buildup of energy counters, this could literally become a hard counter where there's no way they'll have the mana to stop you from being able to counter their stuff, right? Then we've got Brain Surge, so a play on Brainstorm. 1 blue and 2 instant, draw 4 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So Brainstorm does it for 1 mana, get you 3 cards, you put 2 back. So this gives you 1 more card, but it costs 3 mana to do it at instant speed. So I don't know. I feel like this might be a little too slow overall. Like the Modern's huge and there are tons of options. And I don't know if this option makes the cut. Obviously, if you want to set up what's going on the top of your deck, that's going to make this worth a little bit more to you. So the flavor text says, in the cosmos, secrets swirl and spark like wind-born embers, and only Alrund can capture them. Flavor text is pretty cool and gives some meaning to the artwork that either because of the blurriness or the nature of the artwork really just kind of looks like an electrified jellyfish to me. This is, I suppose, your brain, the synapses being blasted with magic, but for me, this card is in the middle of the road. After that, we've got Spy Master's Vault. This one's interesting. It makes me wonder if there's going to be a cycle across all 5 colors, or we're only getting something in black for this. But Spy Master's Vault enters the battlefield unless you control a swamp. This taps to add a black, and 1 black and tap it. Target creature you control connives X, where X is the number of creatures that died this turn. And connive lets you draw X cards, then discard X cards, and you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each non-land card that was discarded this way. So if 5 creatures got destroyed and you activated this ability, then you would get to draw 5 cards. You would then have to discard 5 cards. And for each one that was not a land, you'd put a +1/+1 on your dude. So it's a way to grow your creatures as well as sculpt your hand. And you'll notice that I'm using the term sculpt quite a bit. We'll get into why that is when we get to the Bloomburrow leak, all right? So this is a very, very interesting concept. The idea that this is somewhere where a Spy Master hangs. It's called a Spy Master's Vault, but it doesn't really look like much is being stored here. I feel like this might have been from Eldraine originally. You've got the pillars in the background with like the flames kind of coming up off of them. The picture is a little blurry, but it just makes me think of an inner sanctum where knights would come to swear oaths or something like that. I feel like a Spy Master would probably have something more secretive, and there's nothing about this to say specifically that it's black attuned, especially when you look at the artwork and see all the water, right? Like you feel like this would produce blue mana. It's got a whole bunch of blue in the artwork. There is some purple there to give it that in the shadows. Maybe it's down hidden in some aquifer where the Spy Master like puts all of his stuff. It's a very interesting card, but the flavor of it is a bit muddy. Moving on, we've got Sowing Mycospawn. This is a really funky card. 1 green and 3 for a 3/3 Eldrazi fungus. It's got Devoid, so it counts as a colorless card. It's got a kicker of a colorless and 1. When you cast a spell, search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. That doesn't say basic land, so you can use this to go and get whatever crazy land you want to get. You could even go and get a Spy Master's Vault if you wanted. And when you cast the spell, if it was kicked, exile target land. So this has some fun symmetry where you can yoink one of your opponent's lands and bring one of yours out at the same time. The fact that this is a fungus that's been co-opted by the Eldrazi, I love seeing creatures converted by the Eldrazi, because the main Eldrazi, the three Titans, have a completely warping effect on reality. And the idea, like, fungus thrives in tough conditions and also grows pretty crazy and pretty quick. So combining that with Eldraziness is horrific, because you presume it's going to have the same level of growth. And I really enjoy the way that they have extended the artwork out in this card, but without it obscuring the card text. When you cover up the card text with the artwork, I've never liked that, especially considering how many different names we have. Like, you'll have creatures or planeswalkers where there's 15 different versions of them, and when you cover part of the name, it makes it less understandable what's going on. So them putting the art either behind it or in front of it, but just kind of faded. Like at the top, it looks like they kind of have the art in front of the text, but you can read the text through it. And when you get down into the text box, it looks like the artwork of its crazy tentacles actually kind of feels like an octopus a bit, doesn't it? But anyways, the tentacles are behind the text. So overall, this is sweet, and it's horrific. Look, you've got a pile of mushrooms that's grown this gross Eldrazi body with a little mouth, and it can literally sever your link through the Blind Eternities to different lands, because that's how planeswalkers connect to their mana sources. They link up to different lands on different planes of existence, and this Mycospawn can literally sever that while also growing yours. So that is really, really cool. After that, we've got Flare of Fortitude. This is the white free cast spell. 2 white and 2 for an instant, but you can sacrifice a non-token white creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Till end of turn, your life total can't change, and permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible. This is a feel-good hose your opponent card. Oh, did you think you were about to win? Did you do a whole bunch of big plays? Nah, son. My life total is static. Also, my permanents are indestructible and can't be targeted. The fact that you can, like, at 4 mana, it feels reasonably fair. But when you turn it into just sack any little white donk who's not a token, then you just go, bro, this is absolutely bonkers, right? Although it does work perfectly for white, because white has the heroic sacrifice element to it. So you can see the flavor text says, I call upon a power greater than myself. Somebody gives up their life to save you and all of their fellows, all the other creatures that serve under you, right? It totally has all the elements of a heroic sacrifice. You can see the dude in the artwork literally like blazing out in this energy. And the life energy, unlike swamp mages, black mages, who take that death magic and use it for corruptive purposes, you have this being used for a selfless, save all my friends, oh, hold them off, you go, the kind of vibe, right? Like, this is some peak level white flavor, and I dig it. On top of that, it's a super powerful effect, right? Like, the 4 mana, like I said, feels balanced. Free, not so balanced. Moving on. We've got Ajani Fells the Godsire. This card is included more for flavor reasons and to talk about foils in the set real quick. So 2 white and 3 gets you a saga that has 3 different levels. First level, exile target creature your opponent controls with power 3 or greater. Paying 5 mana to do that does not feel good, right? It does not feel good. The second ability is create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token, then put a vigilance counter on a creature you control. Again, doesn't feel so hot. And the third ability is target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. Ultimately, none of this feels exciting. Paying 5 mana to do all this, technically removing one of your opponent's creatures, getting a creature, making one of you guys vigilance, and giving one of you guys double strike does feel like a lot tacked onto a card. But it's 5 mana. You have to wait 3 turns for that to pay off. And we're talking about modern here. So as far as I'm concerned, this is limited chaff. The artwork is cool. It looks like a metallic spire that's literally been carved to depict Ajani's victory over the Godsire. And I must have missed a memo somewhere, because I don't remember Ajani actually slaying the Godsire. I love the Godsire. He's so cool. It's a gigantic 8/8 beast from the old Alara days that has vigilance and taps to make Godsire tokens. So it makes 8/8 tokens. And it's been outclassed by today's standards for sure. But I just love big, dumb, giganto creatures. And I really like the artwork on this spire depicting a Johnny coming down from the sky, and you can see the Godsire is shown in the stylized way. Like a Johnny is holding his double-bladed axe as he's coming down from the sky, but the Godsire's got a very like crazy big chin and the tusk action. It's really, really cool. What's not cool is how scuffed this card looks. Take a look at the lines that are all over it. This is like a pack fresh foil, right? The leakers just got this stuff. This can't be something that was kicking around for a long time. It just came out of a booster pack and it's this cloudy and scuffed. Like, that's not the poor image quality. That's damage to the foil. And that, unfortunately, is one of the big problems with foils nowadays. Wizards is like, hey, we put premium foils in every pack. Yeah, can you get them so they're not scuffed up, bro? Like, for real. Anyways, moving on to the next card. We've got Guide of Souls. 1 white for a 1/2 human cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and get an energy. So this has the Soul Warden vibe, right? Soul Warden was whenever a creature comes into play, you gain a life. This one just cares about him coming in on your side, but you get to draw on their life energy as well, somehow, convert it into actual energy. And whenever you attack, you can pay 3 energy. When you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on target attacking creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types. So this thing is really, really solid. It even has 2 toughness to make it a little trickier for Bowmasters to ping it in the face, right? Wizards did say that because of Bowmasters, they were going to be changing card design and boosting the toughness on creatures. Now, I don't know if design actually caught up fast enough for this to have been changed because of Bowmasters, but obviously you view it through that lens because Bowmasters are no joke. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this one. I feel like it could easily become Runaway when you put out a bunch of little wieners, get a bunch of energy, and then start to boost them. But you can only do this once per attack. Remember that. If you have 12 energy, you can't go, I'm going to boost up 4 creatures, because it's just a trigger that says you can spend 3 energy the one time to give 2 +1s and a flying counter. But that can be used with creatures like the guy we saw in yesterday's video, where when he adapts, you put counters on him, it triggers this effect, the Emperor of Bones or whatever his name was. So you could use abilities like that, right? The artwork is pretty sweet. You have this dude who must be from Kaldheim because you have the cosmos aspect that's going on behind him with that Aurora Borealis kind of vibe. But what I really, really, really dig is the fact that the Aurora Borealis vibe also doubles as angel wings. If you look at the placement of it, it looks like angel wings. So when he imbues the energy into these people, he's taking the energy of the cosmos and fashioning it into angel wings that beef you up. If you're a regular 1/1 human, now all of a sudden you're as strong as an elephant and you have these wings made of pure god stuff. The cosmos, it's so cool. He deserves to get to stand there with that stance like, let's do this. It's awesome. This is awesome. After that, you've got Disruptor Flute. Every time I see this, I just picture a planeswalker going, a-diddle-loo, 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 a-diddle-loo. There's just something about it. I see you've summoned dragons and demons to defeat me, my mortal foe. Well, hold on. I summon up my flute. So, Disruptor Flute. It's a 2 casting cost artifact with flash. So, at super speed, right? And when it enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells with the chosen name cost 3 more to cast. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So it's a weird kind of almost pithing needle. It costs more to put out, but you can do it as flash speed. If you know your opponent's strategy, you can slow them down with it, but it's still useful even if you don't know their strategy, because you can just play it afterwards to shut off their abilities. It does still just make me laugh at the and then just whoop, smoke starts leaking out of it. It's like, don't you even think about bringing out the goat tickler because it costs way more mana. My flute juice is going to get all up in you. It's just something about it. I summon my flute that has berries tied to it. You want to kiss me under the mistletoe, bro? I have seen this card like 5 times today. And every time I see it, I just think of the goofy flute. And there's something fun about it, right? So, moving on, we've got Evolution Witness. This is a variant on Eternal Witness. Wizards has a bunch of plays on previous cards, including some reserve list stuff that we'll talk about next. Well, when we get to it. 1 green and 2 for a 2/1 Elf Shaman Mutant. I'm not sure why it's a mutant because I can't see it from the artwork. I don't know. Maybe this is because it's Simic art. Or like, it feels like this is supposed to be the Simic Combine, right? They do a lot of evolution style stuff and merging different beings together. So this could easily be somebody who is at the vats. But when I look at her, she just looks like a regular elf to me. So 2/1 with adapt, a green and 1. Remember what I just said about the buddy who adds the +1/+1 counters? Can be used on this guy too. So adapt for 2 mana, put 2 +1/+1s on her. Now she's a 4/3. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Evolution Witness, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This doesn't feel too bad as a common, honestly. Like, they're amping up the levels. Like, it's not the craziest card in the world, but the fact that you can use this as repeatable graveyard recursion if you're growing it in other ways is really sweet. The flavor text says she remembers every breakthrough from the gene's mutation to new life's propagation. Okay, this is definitely a Simic card, and I really like the fact that it's nodding to Eternal Witness, not just in the name, but in the flavor text, because Eternal Witness talks about remembering everybody from when they were born until they're aged, right? So that's a nice callback overall, and not too shabby a card. Then we've got Glimpse the Impossible. The flavor on this is through the roof. That's why it made it in. 1 red and 2 for a sorcery. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remained exiled, put them into your graveyard and then create 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens. So this set will have 1/1 Eldrazi Scion tokens and 0/1 Eldrazi spawn tokens as well. There's a difference, right? So you get one of these 0/1 tokens for each card put into your graveyard this way, and they can be sacrificed for a colorless mana. So you can either use this to accelerate your plan and play more things off the top of your deck, but if you don't get to, then they make it up to you by giving you some extra mana. So that is not too shabby, but honestly, it's the artwork and the flavor text that made me include this card in this video, because otherwise the power level's not enough. The flavor text says, Gisela beheld true divinity and was humbled. Gisela is an angel that was corrupted by Emrakul, right? So basically, that's what you see here. Witnessing Emrakul, her eyes are melting out of her head, and the liquid that's dripping from her eye sockets is pouring onto her hands and causing Emrakul tentacles to burst out of her. Like, angels serve gods and goddesses, right? They are essentially fragments of divinity, and they're going to be more powerful than pretty much all the mortals, right? We're talking about the world of Innistrad, where the angels would protect people from demons and werewolves and devils and vampires. So these angels are used to being vanquishers, right? Encountering a power greater than them that literally isn't just some demon that's more powerful. It's an eldritch being that they can't even fathom the nature of. And just being in proximity to it warps their own existence. Their divine purity is being corrupted into the unknowable. The flavor is incredible. Look at the horrified look. It's so good. It's so good. I can't believe how good this is. Anyways, next card, Ocelot Pride. 1 white mana for a 1/1 cat that has first strike and lifelink. It's got Ascend, which is the ability that came from the Ixalan block that says, if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then, if you have the city's blessing, for each token you control that's entered the battlefield this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. So it turns into, just on its own, when you have the city's blessing, did you gain life this turn? Make 2 1/1s. But if you have other things that are populating, it's just going to grow completely out of control. The flavor of this card is a lot of fun too. You've got the ocelots that are shown there, and you might not even notice the ones in the background at first, because I didn't. I just noticed the one in the front that's more prominent, and I like the fact that they literally are living inside a giant stone cat mouth. Like, was this literally created for these ocelots? Is this a society where they worship the ocelots. It's clearly been here for a long time because you can see the age of the stone and all the moss hanging down from it. This is, for 1 mana, crazy powerful. It's got lifelink too, so it enables its own, like, yo, if I can swing with and get you with this, I'm gonna get 1 or 2 extra cats a turn. It's silliness, and cat lovers are obviously gonna love this. So solid card. After that, we've got Primal Prayers. I told you guys there was reserve listitude going on. This is a tweak on Allurin. So 2 green and 2 gets you an enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. It also says you may cast creature spells with mana value 3 or less by paying energy rather than paying their mana costs. If you cast a spell this way, you may cast it as though it had flash. Now, when I first read this, I thought this was saying you have to pay an amount of energy equal to that creature's casting cost, but you don't. You spend 1 energy and you get to cast the creature for free at flash speed. So you can just instantaneously play a creature that costs 3 or less from your hand for 1 energy. This feels like a massive combo engine. The flavor text says, when Gaia speaks, all of nature falls silent. I'm not 100% sure what's going on in the artwork here because it is a little bit blurry, but it looks like a bunch of animals have come to like worship a locus of nature. Like this is a fragment of Gaia that is speaking out to them. And so it can just like weaker creatures that cost 3 or less, the ones that will have their minds more easily subjugated, are just drawn to it. And I don't know, this is just an orb of energy that you can draw on. The flavor's interesting. Having all the animals around it in a convergence is very cool. And I don't know, I like the dark, shadowy nature of it with the light of the orb reflected in the eyes of the cats up at the top, like they're under its spell. It's pretty cool. This is a funky card. Then we've got the Necrobloom. Speaking of funky, 1 green, 1 black, 1 white, and 1 for a 2/7 plant. That is a high toughness. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, make a 0/1 green plant creature token. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token instead. So there you go. You can crank a whole bunch of 2/2s if you're playing with a wide variety of different lands. And in Modern, it's not going to be that hard to get yourself a bunch of different lands. People are already getting used to doing that to play Field of the Dead. This is Field of the Dead built into a creature that gives you tokens before you hit the 7 different lands. You're making 0/1 plants, but once you get up to enough lands, it starts blorping out zombies. And I like the idea of this plant. Basically, it sends its roots down into your lands, right? And the more access you give it to different types of terrain, now all of a sudden, instead of coughing out little plantlings, it's just like, boom, full-on corpse zombies are blasting out of it. Like, look at its weird, stubby, fat root body. And like, I picture that top part of it with the blackness. I picture that's when it's fully bloomed and is actually blorping out zombies. So before that, it's got more of a green nature vibe to it, and it's just kicking out little plantlings. But at a certain point, it just turns to black, and zombies start climbing up out of it, or just get like belched out of it onto the ground. Gross, man. And that it also has land cards in your graveyard have dredge too. So basically, you can mill 2 cards off of your deck and skip your next card draw to get the land back, which is, I mean, depending on what it is you want to do, and if the lands are hitting your like, you can use this ability to feed more different lands into your graveyard and then get them back to get to the 7 different lands. It's a really, really interesting card. As a creature, it's easier to answer than Field of the Dead. So it remains to be seen what kind of impact this is going to have, but this is absolutely something that I would try out in my cube. Then we've got Frogmere Enforcer. So this one's bringing Prototype from the Brothers War into Modern. Well, I mean, obviously Brothers War is in Modern, but I mean into Modern Horizons 3. So this is a affinity. This is like, there's a 7-cost 4/4 mirror as well, that the name of it escapes me right now, that has affinity. So the idea is these are played in decks where you have so many artifacts that you can just play them for free, right? Mirror Enforcer or something like that. So 7 mana 4/4 affinity for artifacts, but you can also have the alternate casting cost of a red and 3 for a 2/2. So in a red deck, you would only need to have 3 artifacts out to put this out for 1 red as a 2/2. Ultimately, it doesn't feel that powerful, but it does add more affinity freeboys for affinity play. So it's all right. The artwork is funky. You have this big old metal bug frog beast that looks like it's torn some guy's head off. It's standing in the middle of desolation. Just, oh, alas, Yorick, I've got your brain to eat. And it's just got some cool artwork. Then we've got Kalia of the Vast. Now, this is a reprint. I love Kalia. She's so cool. A black, a white, a red, and 1 for a 2/2 flyer. When she attacks an opponent, you can put an angel, demon, or dragon creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking that opponent. In the vast emptiness, Kalia found she was not alone. It's really cool that she has the dual set of wings, right? She's got the leathery demon dragon looking wings and the angel wings together. 4-winged angels are already a cool concept, but when you have 2 different kinds of wings put together, it's even funkier. And the fact is, she's not an angel or a demon. She's a human cleric. So just a really, really interesting character overall, which is why I chose to include this reprint. It's really funky. Then we've got, this is the most powerful card out of all the spoilers as far as I'm concerned. 6 is absolutely insane. This card is way too good. 1 green and 2 for a 2/4 legendary creature tree folk with reach. Whenever 6 attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. And as long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. So if you don't know what retrace is, it's discard a land from your hand to cast the spell from your graveyard. You have to pay its casting cost too. So essentially what this is saying is, if you have lands in your hand, you have access to all the non-land permanents in your graveyard. You can just cast any of them with retrace just by pitching a land. It's just bonkers. It's bonkers. And it literally mills cards into your graveyard when it attacks and lets you put a land from the milled cards in so you can use them with the cards that have been put into your graveyard for retrace. It feels like you can do so much with this. And the flavor on it is really cool too, because this is one of Ren's trees. You know, there's Ren in 6, Ren in 7. So Ren is a Dryad Planeswalker who has an entire inferno lodged in her body because her forest was going to get burnt down, and she managed to draw this inferno into herself. And by doing so, she gained the ability to planeswalk. But to do that, she has to be melded with a tree, and they have to be very specific trees that sing to her. So she's only found a few of them here or there. This is the 6th tree that she has merged with, but this is the tree on its own as a sentient being. And I don't know exactly how long, like when Ren separated from them, they end up returning to be a regular tree. So this is a stage in between that. And I really, really enjoy the concept of 6 having this little songbird on his or her finger. I think 6 is a he. On his finger, staring at it contemplatively, while it still maintains its full level of conscious awareness, right? As a tree, it might have been vaguely aware of the birds that landed in its branches and the bird song, but now it can stare at it contemplatively. Plus, the bird, like 6 is this gigantic hulking tree folk with this level of menace to it. Look at these giant claws. But the bird isn't afraid. It's just boom, lands on the branch like it's nothing. It's such cool flavor overall. This is a fantastic card. Then we've got the Bloomburrow leak, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Now we already saw a different variation of Jace as a fox Bloomburrow artwork. So it remains to be seen whether there are multiple variations, like if there's a Jace Balerin as the fox, and then a Jace the Mind Sculptor as the fox, possibly other Jaces as well. For those of you who don't know, Jace the Mind Sculptor at one point was one of the most defining cards in Magic and just dominated to the point where the set it was from, the booster packs, were impossible to get because everybody was out playing the Jace lottery trying to score them because the cards were going for like $120 a piece, because this card is absolutely bonkers. Like, it's So powerful. 2 blue and 2, 3 loyalty, +2. Look at the top card of target player's library. You can play that card. Yeah, sorry, you can put that card on the bottom of the library. You can't play it. 0, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand back on top of your library in any order. So you can just brainstorm for free. -1, return target creature to its owner's hand. And -12, exile all cards from target player's library. That player then shuffles their hand into the library. So they lose their whole deck. However many cards they have in their hand is their new deck. So they lose their hand and they're going to run out of cards in a few turns. Because even if they had 7 cards in hand, that's only 7 turns. But it's very unlikely they have a full mitt. So this is a game-ending card that can protect itself super easy. It lets you dig down into your deck, manipulate what's on top, send their biggest creature back for only -1 loyalty. It's a house. So this card got accidentally leaked because of a promotional video. So I believe it was supposed to be a Pinfinity. Now, looking at the crazy frame and the yellow bordering and stuff, it makes me wonder if they're doing the same thing that they've done in previous sets where they give us like neon ink kind of treatments that make them ultra rare. So this could be something along those lines. It doesn't look like it's a secret layer card. This is basically, with Bloomburrow, what they're doing is they're having a what if category as the bonus cards, and that what if is all kinds of different people we've seen before, but in animal form. And the reason for that is Bloomburrow is a world where humanoid, like regular humans, don't exist. And if you go to the world and you are a regular style human, you get turned into an animal. So Jace got turned into a fox. Ralzeric gets turned into an otter. In terms of the main Bloomburrow set, only Ral is going to be there in the story and in the main set, but we're going to see other planeswalkers showing up in the what if side slot. And that's what this is. But I presume this is an ultra chase version of it. And technically, I guess I can't rule out that it could be a secret layer card as well. I'm not 100%. But either way, that wraps up all of the spoilers that I have to talk about today. So if you made it all the way through, let me know in the comments that you are a soldier who has rocked with me the long way for all of these spoilers. And if you want to spend some more time together today, I'm going to be doing a live stream tonight over on my other channel. You're welcome to come and hang out. If you miss it, I've got a whole live stream archive where you can watch. Well, there's like over 100 live streams up there now. So other than that, all I have to do is say, big thank you to my patrons for supporting my channel, and I will see you all in the next video.